Okay, I'm waiting to see.
Okay, we are live on YouTube. So there's like a 3-second delay here, but
okay. All right, I see it.
We are there. So
okay,
I'm gonna go ahead and post this on our Facebook page.
All right.
And let everybody know we had to move. Yay, Facebook.
Yeah, their platform has been running very strangely in the last couple of days. There was reports that a number of people that were reporting or posting things about the COVID-19 were automatically getting marked as spam.
Oh, really?
Yes. Isn't that great?
Yeah, I can't talk about that stuff. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just continue here as normal. So, yay. Welcome, everybody. We moved to YouTube because we could not get the stream going on Facebook. It was just crapping out. And this is day 2 that has happened.
The lights are out there.
Everybody at Facebook's at home and sick or sleeping, one of the two. So welcome for those of you who are new. This is Hair of the Dog. It's a morning show. Usually we have a guest with us, or we have in the last few. Today we don't, because there's a lot to talk about with, minor apocalypse events going on. So I'm Carrie, and this is Andy. Andy's joining from Canada. In
Good morning.
Chicago. So so the first thing, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna do my little rant about primary voting in Illinois.
Please do.
Okay, so just so everyone's aware, I am currently sick. So yesterday I missed the first election in over 15 years. I vote every year. There's an election every year, not just on presidential years. There's an election every year. Yesterday was the first one I missed. And I did that because I was trying to be responsible. I was trying to be mindful of my neighbors and the volunteers at the polling place. I didn't want to be the cause of someone else getting sick. However, to me, what happened yesterday, for those of you who aren't aware, the Democratic Party has the ability to move the primary. They can. We've seen it happen. Other states who are trying to be responsible and respectful of their own membership moved the primary, but not here in Illinois. Here in Illinois, we had the governor shut down restaurants and bars and mandate that we have to be at least 6 feet away from each other. That was the governor trying to at least do something. What did the Democratic Party in Illinois do? They said, screw you, we're going to hold these elections anyway. We're going to put everyone at risk, and we're going to do it in the most irresponsible way. And we're going to do it by breaking the law. So here's what I mean by that. I was in bed sick, but all day long, I was fielding calls and texts from poll watchers and other people who were going to a polling place, if they could find one that was open. They were going to a polling place and the poll booths were right next to each other. So you go up to a booth and you vote and you're like elbowing the person next to you. That defied the governor's order of being at least 6 feet apart, right? So I had one woman call and say, there is a diabetic gentleman in a wheelchair who has been positioned in a disability booth that is right between 2 other poll booths. So he is sandwiched in between them. If anybody happens to come next to him, or if anybody had been there within the prior 4 or 5 hours who had this virus and left the virus on either of those polling stations, that gentleman is now at risk. And he's more at risk because of his diabetic condition, disability, and whatever else he's got going on. So the Democratic Party in Illinois was okay with putting that particular gentleman and millions of other people at risk when they did not have to. And aside from that, in the city of Chicago, you had polling locations that were closed, absolutely closed. So you could not exercise your right to vote at a polling location. So we have people who have mobility issues, who have transportation issues. And at the same time, the governor has closed down bars and restaurants and all of these other places where you have minimum wage, tip earning employees who don't have good health insurance, who don't have wages when they're sick. They don't have any of these things. They're still trying to survive. They're still trying to make ends meet and get to the grocery store and everything else. But now we've put them at risk too. So you have all of these things coming together in the same scenario, just so the Democratic Party of Illinois could get their primary voting done. And oh, by the way, one more thing I want to make everybody aware of. When we post our results, like last night we posted our results, did anybody happen to notice that those results do not include mail-in ballots and early voting? So the numbers that we put up are complete bullshit. We don't have half of the totals presented that you would expect. So we've got all of these things playing into it. And I do want to stress that there is a petition going around right now that if you get sick within the next 14 days and you voted yesterday, you went in person and voted, you may have a claim against the Democratic Party of Illinois, which is a corporation, not an organization. They are a corporate entity. You may have a claim because they put you at risk, because they went against the governor's orders, they went against the CDC, they went against the World Health Organization and refused to move the primary as they should have done. Wholly irresponsible and just a complete travesty of what the democratic process is intended to be. So that is my first rant, and I'll pause because I got more coming. But I got a whole lot more coming.
It was an hour going to be enough time for this show?
No, I'm going to need a year for this shit. So,
well, I understand completely what you're saying. This is very scary. There are alternatives to what happened yesterday, but it is important for the DNC to have these elections happen before their candidate of choice drops any further in the polls, right? And if they choose another way to do this, they will lose the ability to control and rig the elections like they've been rigging them, right? This is over and above the health of Americans, right? We have this orange buffoon in the White House that is claiming that everything is fine, no, nothing to see here, no problems, no worries. The only person that Donald Trump cares about is himself. He wants to control the narrative because he wants to be reelected. And that, above everything else, is the only thing that is important to him. If he admits that the US is going to hell in a handbasket, then he is potentially ruining his chances to win a second term. That's all he cares about. So you can't look to the White House for advice or for a direction at this point. So what you have to do is you have to understand that the two places where the virus has struck the hardest and done the most damage is China and Italy. The only way that they were able to get the spread of the virus under control was to basically put everyone under house arrest. They stopped everything. They shut it all down. They closed everything. They made people stop interacting with one another, which stopped the spread of the virus. The United States currently has over 10,000 cases, confirmed cases of coronavirus, and they're not doing a lot of testing. There are conservative estimates in Ohio that say that there as many as 100,000 people currently have the virus. So the only way that the United States has any chance of not being completely dedicated by this is by doing what China and Italy did and stopping people from leaving their homes, which just goes to show you how much more the DNC decision yesterday was absolutely horrid. You now have an entire population of people that don't know what they're up against, whose leadership has abandoned them, has basically told them, we're going to give you crumbs to get through this, because we're talking about a UBI, a universal basic income, temporarily while the coronavirus is happening. Okay. The problem with that is if you're going to give people a certain amount of money a month, you assume that they have the ability to go out and buy things. Okay. You can't buy things if there aren't things in the grocery store to buy. You can have as much money in your bank account as you want. If the things aren't there for you to purchase, what good does it do you?
Well, you bring up a good point. So yeah, it's a UBI, and let's put it in perspective. First, they were talking about $500, and then it went to 1,000, and they hemmed and hawed over that. Now the next number is like 4,000. So I want to stress to people that 4,000 seems like a lot, and it's a travesty that it is a lot to us. To the 1%, whatever, they make that in 2 minutes. So for us, 4,000 seems like a lot, and you will be tempted to jump on it. And I'm not saying don't take it, but let's put it in perspective. If you get sick and you need to go to the emergency room, that 4,000 is gone. If you get sick and you need to go to ICU, that is 20 minutes in the ICU, that $4,000. So what they have said is the test will be paid for, but not the treatment. And you saw Trump trot out all of these CEOs who said, yeah, we're working on it. Not one of those people said it will be free to you. We are going to take care of you. We took care of Wall Street a couple times, but you, no. And to your point, how do you buy food? How do you buy groceries? How do you buy the supplies and medication that you may need to treat yourself at home when it may not be available to you? Right? So
that's exactly the problem. That's exactly the problem. You can throw as much money at people as you want, but if the grocery store shelves are empty, what good does that do you? What the government should do, and what other more responsible governments have done, is they have suspended rent payments, mortgage payments, car payments, utility payments. They have said, don't worry about your bills right now. Stay at home and get better, because that's the only way we're going to stop this virus. The only way we're going to minimize the number of deaths, because right now, the United States medical services are not overrun with patients. So the death rate is not that high because they currently have the resources to take care of it. As the numbers of patients go up exponentially, because they haven't done the right things, your hospitals and your doctors and healthcare professionals are going to be overrun to the point where they don't have enough equipment to take care of people. And the death rate is going to go higher because you can't treat someone with a ventilator if you've run out of ventilators.
But here's an interesting little tidbit. What we saw yesterday is The masks that you need now, those little paper masks, they don't do shit. Unless you're sick, then they help you to a point, affect other people. But so far as keeping you safe, those little paper masks don't do shit. But you know who had them? ICE raids had them. ICE raids had the masks that are required to keep them safe. And what were they doing in LA? They were doing all their raids yesterday with the masks on. So those people have it. They got them. The rest of everyone else, doctors and nurses and the people that you would expect might have them, no, they don't. They don't.
Exactly.
So it shows you, if you cannot see where we put our priorities, if this doesn't make sense, just look at what they do, not what they say. Look at what they do. I mean, I was on the phone with my own doctor for like 45 minutes, and he was laughing with me because he said, I'm bored. I'm bored because my vacation got canceled and all of my appointments canceled. So he said, so I am just sitting here ramping up and reading about COVID. And he said, look, I don't have the mask. I don't have any of that. And he's like, I'm waiting for the point where 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be so busy in the ICU and with all of my patients. He's like, I've got nothing going on right now and there's nothing I can do. So he's like, yeah, 45 minutes we were on the phone just talking. He recognizes it. They all see it here. We're just waiting for the worst to happen, and it's starting.
Yes, it is. And it's going to get exponentially worse because too much time has passed before anybody has started to say this needs to be taken care of. And the one entity, which is the government, that could basically make the keystrokes to put the money in place to actually help people, refuses to help anybody but corporations that have lost their value in the stock market, right? That's the only people that have really had any help at all. Let me tell you a little story. As I talked about on the last show, my wife is on the front line of this as a healthcare professional. She works in the OR. She has been deployed to the main entrance of the hospital to screen patients that are coming in to the hospital. This is not an assessment clinic. This is just screening people, asking them a few questions. Have you traveled? Where did you travel? Do you have a fever? Or do you have a cough? If any of those questions are yes, then there's a specific area in the waiting area where these patients have to stay with a mask on. That's their job at the front. So anybody that comes into the hospital with the virus, my wife has direct contact with. They have given her OR masks. They are not N95 masks. They are regular masks. So my wife, of course, said, what do we do? We're not protected properly. And we are the front line that are dealing with these people coming in the hospital. The person that is in charge of the screening told her, we can give you an N95 mask now. But if you have them, as the shit starts to hit the fan and the hospital gets overrun with patients, we are going to run out. So if you want them now, we're going to run out later. So if you can wait for a little while, then we should have enough to protect you when it starts to get bad.
But by that time, she could already have been exposed. She could already be a carrier herself by the time that you can see the evidence around you.
That's why 26% of people that get the coronavirus are healthcare professionals, because they aren't properly protected.
Oh, geez. So it's just maddening, the lack of logic and resource management that we have to deal with right now. So, wow, Andy, I am so sorry, and I hope that you guys at home are preparing for when she gets sick, and then the rest of you get sick and try to manage through it. because that's really all we have right now.
I
Right?
luckily have a travel trailer that gets stored in the wintertime. I'm going this morning to take it out of storage to put it in a driveway, setting it up so that my wife has a place to go that is separated from the rest of us in our family. She'll have her own little contained area where she goes, and we will not be interacting until the crisis is over. The only way that I will do is I have a place that I could put things for her outside that
Mhm.
she can walk out and grab. She is the only time because this is Canada and it's March still, it's still winter, right? I cannot put water in that trailer because it will freeze. So she does not have a working bathroom in that trailer. So the only way that she can use the washroom is we'll have to designate a washroom for her in the house. And luckily in my basement, there is a washroom that if she goes around the house, there is an entrance in the back of the house that is 15 feet down the hall, and that's her bathroom, right? That's how the next month or two are going to run here for this family.
That's
That's
insane.
the only thing we can do. But every household has to have this sort of plan, right? If you are still out in society denying the fact that this is a problem and interacting with people, if you're young and you don't think you're going to get sick, or if you do, you're not going to get bad symptoms, that may be the case. But you are still the next link in the chain of infection. You now have the ability to infect others who might be immunodeficient, who might be elderly, right? This has to stop being passed from human being to human being. We have to get people to stay in their homes. The messaging has to happen that way. It's the only way that the Chinese government and the Italian government realized that they could control this. Italy thought they could shut down regions. They thought they could put a quarantine on a region. What that did was forced people to leave the region and spread the disease to other parts of the country. The United States, Canada, the UK, any other country in the world that has any cases at all needs to completely shut down their borders, lock it down tight, tell your people to go in their homes, do not interact with one another, and stay there until the cases start to go down. The only time you should go to the hospital is if you are in respiratory arrest, if you are having problems breathing, because the hospital is not going to be able to do anything for you. And you are out of your home, potentially spreading the virus to others.
You bring up
Right?
an excellent point, because it was discussed yesterday, and even on Fox News. When Fox News is now the voice of reason, we're completely insane. But they were looking at like Chicago O'Hare Airport at JFK and all of these others where Trump told people that we are going to shut off, you cannot travel. We're going to have a ban with Europe. So, what that did was push people to immediately fly back to the United States. So, you see all these pictures on the internet of Chicago and all of these other major airports with people packed in like sardines waiting to go through customs to come back. When what he should have said, and even Fox News brought this up, was if you're an American citizen, you can come back at any time. Don't feel like you've got to travel right now. So instead, it prompted this massive wave of people coming into the country from Italy, from France, from the UK. So now we've got all of these people. If you look at statistics, one of them in that crowd could affect 20 or 30. So I want to bring it back to Illinois' election and how irresponsible that was, because when you go out and you look at the vote totals, combined totals of everybody who voted, That is the number of people who were exposed yesterday. They were out in public socializing with others. Statistically, you will have some people who were carriers who are not showing symptoms, who accidentally exposed other people, not just polling workers, but other people, because let's say I cough and then I touch the poll booth or I touch the screen. Nobody was wiping those screens down. Nobody was doing anything with the pens or the desks or any of that. So all of those people yesterday, because the Democratic Party decided that they needed to have this vote yesterday, and let's draw a contrast. The Democratic Party in Illinois to the Democratic Party in Ohio, or at least the governor and things like this. So in Ohio, they pushed to move their primary, which you can do. You absolutely can do. And they tried to do that, but the Democratic Party in Ohio tried to fight it so that Ohio was going to vote yesterday. And that went until 4 o'clock in the morning, back and forth between a judge and the Democratic Party. It was finally stopped at the last minute so that people in Ohio wouldn't face the same risk that the people in Illinois faced. And it was the Democratic Party in both sides that were trying to put people at risk, all for a damn vote that did not have to happen yesterday, because they have such short-sightedness that all they're looking at is, how do we rig an election to put somebody in there to get the nominee that we want? And for my part, now I sit back and look at all of my neighbors and all of the people that had been exposed. And I already have people telling me that Joe Biden losing is my fault. And we're not even finished with the primary yet. So I already have them telling me that it is my fault, when they know, based on that very argument alone, he cannot win against Trump. So what am I supposed to do here? Am I supposed to sit here and take it? Am I supposed to look at all of this and go, well, it's just the way it is? I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with the way it's being handled for the electoral process, for people's right to vote being stubbed out because polling places are closed, because the chair of our party here in Illinois could not get off his ass and do things properly for the good of the people. He couldn't be bothered with it. And each and every one of the Democratic representatives, from the Senate to the state to local to clerk and everything else, did not stand up and say, no, this is not right. No, we won't put our people at risk. Instead, they went along to get along. And now everybody, and I don't care if you're independent, libertarian, Republican, whatever, they put us all at risk. And that is not okay. Absolutely.
There was one of the people at one of the polling stations said that we don't have any supplies here. Will you please send us supplies? And she posted a picture of the supplies. It was a single container of wipes and one thing of Purell hand sanitizer for that polling place. That was their idea of supplies to keep the place safe. It's insane. If I was American right now and I was abroad, if I was in any other country right now, I would have to think really long and hard about whether or not I would want to go back to the US right now.
Wouldn't you though? I mean, wouldn't you? At what point? Now, if I'm sitting overseas and like in Europe, Scotland, Germany, France, and I'm looking at their universal healthcare systems and how they are actually implementing rent and mortgage forgiveness and all of these things, investing in their people. And then I look across the pond at the United States, my own country, and what we're doing, what the political parties are doing, what the administration is doing. I would have some serious doubts about coming back. You're right. I would be looking at what are the qualifications for amnesty at this point?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, if you're in a place that they're taking this seriously, then they're not going to waste their time kicking you out. They're going to tell you to go somewhere and stay safe and not spread the disease. Like, that's the level that we have to be at in the world right now. We have to be so afraid of this thing that people don't move, that they go to a place and they stay. They don't have contact with other people and they don't spread the virus, because it's going to get worse. It's going to go worldwide. And the United States is still in denial. And it's going to be one of the hardest hit places.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I don't think the United States is in denial, and I'm going to go dark and negative on this. I don't think it's denial. I think that we understand, maybe not the citizenry, but those people who are in charge. I believe that they understand exactly what our situation is here. And let's look at the situation leading up to this. I wrote a story about Georgia when we had the heartbeat bill for abortion rights, and everybody was up in arms about, I want my rights to reproductive, which I get. But underneath that, underlying that, was this statistic that nobody really understands, that sepsis, which is a common bacterial infection, you can get that from an untreated wound or from a urinary tract infection or something like that that has gone untreated. Sepsis is now among the leading cause of death in 10 states in the United States. 10 states. You will die from a common treatable bacteria more likely than you will from cancers or heart attacks. And the reason for that is because we have people who are uninsured, who are underinsured, and we cannot afford access to healthcare. So this is the situation that was rising in our country. Like here in Illinois, it's sixth leading cause of death, but in Georgia, it was third, right? So, and that was just a few months ago. So you have this situation, and then on top of that, you have the income inequality. We have this gig economy now where people are driving for Uber, or they're delivering groceries, or they're working at restaurants, or the deep dark secret is temporary workers. Companies don't hire employees anymore because it's cheaper to hire a temporary worker, string them along for 6 months, get rid of them, and then bring on a new wave of temporary worker. None of those people have benefits or access to care. So all of this was playing into the scenario, and now you have this virus, which is absolutely treatable. And the majority of people will not have these egregious side effects or have to be hospitalized. However, those people now, this great swath of our country, don't have access to healthy, nutritious food, don't have an income right now, don't have access to healthcare. All of these things are going to make what could have been a manageable epidemic into a catastrophic situation where I think that the oligarchs are starting to realize, and we as a people are starting to realize, if we're not working, the little guy is not working, we bring down the economy. The job creators can't do shit. It's us. We produce the monetary value of this nation. And if we're not working, if we are sick, if we can't get access to healthcare, if all of these things come into place, guess what? All your millions don't matter. Not a bit. So this is what's happening. And I think that the people in charge, the Mike Madigans of Illinois, and all these other people, they know that these things are coming to play, but they don't want to talk about it. They want to continue as if business as usual, and it's not.
It can't be. We are in the United States. The government looks to the market, to the private sector, to fix all their problems, right? In an country with unfettered capitalism, you look to the private sector to take care of people. The private sector is not set up to do that. The private sector is profit driven, right? Sick people can't get insurance because it's not profitable, right? That's the problem in the US, where everything is being run through capitalism. It's dog eat dog, the strong survive and the weak perish. That's the way it works. And eventually it's going to be too late. And something like this comes around. The market is not capable of helping people in a situation like this. At some point, hopefully, the government will step in, use the power of the purse to make things right for people, right? Because ultimately, it's the people that have to vote for them, right? But if there aren't any people, I guess that, that's the ultimate voter suppression. But it's they're going to have to. The one thing that I absolutely am looking forward to at the end of this, and it's the only thing, because I am scared to death of this, that there are people that I know that are not going to survive this around the world, right? Or in my community, or what have you. I'm scared to death of that. But eventually, it's going to be shown that governments have the ability to create as much funding as they want by simple keystrokes on a computer to pay for things. And they're not going to be able to explain it away, right? So this is going to be a good thing. It's going to show people that the neoclassical economic theory that has been prevalent in the United States since the late 60s, early 70s has been a lie. That scarcity has been a lie. That it's going to show people that we can just pay for stuff and it's going to be all right. Because if they don't, then the population of the United States is going to be devastated.
Good point. So nobody, I don't recall anybody posing the question yesterday when we talked about this UBI payment, this emergency payment, how are you going to pay for it? Not one time did that come up. It was never, how are you going to pay for it? They understand how it's paid for. Here's the problem that we have in the United States when it comes to supply. We don't manufacture enough materials here. Even the materials that come for ICU support are coming from overseas, from Puerto Rico, from other places. We don't manufacture the masks here in the United States. So we are going to have to reach out and dig deep and go towards Europe and other countries that are manufacturing these things. Well, we've got the border shut down and all of this other stuff. So we're going to have a supply chain. We're already having a supply chain issue when it comes to the US. And anybody who is homebound or whatnot, they are already seeing it, because your shipments from Amazon, your shipments from UPS, all of these things are being delayed or put off for months, or what. We're already seeing it. So the problem that we are going to have is, let's say we do decide that we're going to buy masks for everybody. Where do we get these masks? How do we ramp up? Instead of talking to our corporate business partners and saying, we need a World War II effort, we need that kind of effort to retool and manufacture, they're not doing that. They are still not doing that yet. They're going by, well, let's just do what we've always done. The market will take care of it. No, the market doesn't take care of it. What happened was, those that were in power at the time recognized the severity of the situation and went to the business owners and said, you will do this, or you will not operate in this country anymore, period. And that's what happened. Those were the closed door conversations that were happening, not this, they're good business partners and the market will take care of it. That's not how history played out. So I think people need to recognize that in particular.
Absolutely. That's the problem, right? That's the problem with the market economy. It's not profitable to save human lives.
Very true. One more point, and I want to get off this just for a little bit, and I'm going to talk to my Bernie supporters for just a second. I want to talk to you, family, and this is tough love. I want you to look at the results that we had yesterday in Illinois, and I get that that entire primary was a sham. I get it. But we have been talking to you for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and asking you to get involved and asking you to believe in the not me, us. And yesterday, what I saw was you fell on your asses. And let me tell you why. Here in Illinois, we had seven Bernie-crat candidates challenging congressional members for their seats. 7. One of them won. And the reason she won, this was Marie Newman in Illinois' 3rd district, because this was the second time she ran. So if you're a progressive candidate and you didn't win yesterday, the lesson for you is the only way to counter millions of dollars is to run again. So I know what bullshit you went through. I was there with some of you pushing back on some of that bullshit. I'm asking you to consider running again. For the rest of you Bernie people, I want you to go in and look at those results and look at the number of you, the millions who did vote, and how few of you voted down ballot. You dropped the ball. And there is no way around it. When we look at one election in one congressional district where you have 23,000 votes for Bernie, but 700 votes for your down ballot Bernie-crats, that's on you. And what I want you to recognize in all of this is this entire primary, this entire election is not about Bernie Sanders. And for those of you in our revolution and all of these Bernie-crat things who say we are only working for Bernie, shame on you. Because these 7 congressional candidates and the down ballot state candidates were the ones who could enact the policies that Bernie supports. So if you got Bernie into office by some sheer force of will or miracle, nothing changes. But if you got in those 7 congressional candidates, everything would have changed and you dropped the ball. So I don't know who you're listening to, what memo you missed over the last 3 years. That is what these primary elections are about. So if you still have not voted yet in Ohio and all of these other states, and you don't have in front of you your Bernie-crat candidate so that you can vote for them, get it done now, because that is how we change things. And please don't come at me if you're an OR leader or you're one of these organizers in Chicago, or you're even a goddamn delegate and you did not get out there and you did not help your Bernie-crat candidate. I don't want to hear your bullshit right now. I've been telling you this for 3 years, and every time I got a pushback, every goddamn time. Guess what? Now we own it. Here in Illinois, we own it. So the next time one of these people decides to take 2 years out of their life, 2 years away from their family, to run and put up with bullshit and harassment and threats and everything else, and you're not backing them, I'm telling you, I'm not going to be as nice as I was. It's not going to happen. And there are so many other people just like me that you are going to have to watch out for. So either you be quiet and you step aside and get the hell out of the way, or you join the fight and you actually do something. So
Because Bernie Sanders, first and foremost, not me, us, right? This is not about Bernie Sanders. It's a movement of people who are trying to take back power from the powerful. It's a movement. We don't look to the White House, politicians, the Congress to enact change for us. We make the change and force them to change with us. It always starts from the ground and moves up. That's the important thing. Bernie Sanders is the person that's currently at the head. But it's not about Bernie. It's about a movement of people. And that's where people don't get it. And there's all these progressives that were all, rah, Bernie Sanders. Well, none of us should be surprised that the DNC and the Democratic Party is rigging this against Bernie on every level. It should not be a surprise that he is not winning in delegate count. Okay, we have the entire establishment, all of mainstream media against it. That's why it's not working. But it's not about that. That should not surprise you. It's about a change in the way people think about their lives in the world and how we go about that. Because we now have, because Bernie Sanders isn't leading and the establishment is being successful in pushing Joe Biden to the front, who is going to lose to Trump. That's pretty much a guarantee now, okay? Because they get to keep the status quo. That's all that this was ever about. What we need to do is start a movement of people. Bernie Sanders started that movement, but it's up to all of us to continue it. The fact that Bernie is down in delegates should not be a reason for you to, oh, we lost. I'm going home. I'm done. This is just the beginning. It took 50 years to turn the tide against us to where it is now. It's going to take more time to turn it around the other way. Do we have enough time before human beings no longer have the ability to live on this planet? Nobody knows that. But that's what needs to happen to change, because they have all the power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's talk about that just for a minute here. I mean, we're 15 minutes over the hour, but climate change, right? So an interesting side effect of Italy being shut down, in Venice, they're showing pictures now of the water and things like this. They're saying it hasn't been this clear in decades, and it's all because people have changed their behavior, and the status quo everyday activity has stopped. So things are starting already there to return to some degree of normalcy in the environment. So now when we look at climate change and all of these things, look at it on the backdrop of this epidemic, this pandemic, right? So what we fear, what we're struggling against, all of these things will be so much worse as the years march on when we are not addressing it. So if you're prepared to tell me that we need to have Joe Biden as a nominee because he's better than Trump, my pushback on you is going to be, how is he better than Trump when his policies are in line with what Trump is currently doing, right? So you are telling me to set aside everything that I believe in for my kid and his future because you are so afraid of Trump today. And yet you haven't put it together that either one of these candidates and their policies is going to lead to the exact same place. One is going to make you feel better so you can go home and go back to sleep. And the other one is just going to piss you off every day. Like, what the hell did he say today? Right? There is very little difference in their policies. So what I'm going to go back to on this is when we did a survey, there was, and I'll try and find it, national survey on liberals, people on the left, progressives, liberals, everybody who say that they're left leaning. They asked them if they believe in climate change, and they all said, of course, yes. But then the next question was, do you believe that it will directly affect you? And that number dropped precipitously. What happened was you had a majority say, yes, I believe in the client science, but only like 20 or 30% could recognize that it will affect me personally. So I would hope that what we're going through now with supply chain issues and access to care and all of these things is really starting to solidify the issue for you personally, you who live in the suburbs somewhere, you who have an idyllic community, you who do not have to deal with environmental issues and all of these things today. I hope it makes it clear.
Because the coronavirus doesn't discriminate. It doesn't, it will affect everybody equally.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, your sexual preference, your citizen status. It is going to kill people indiscriminately. So it doesn't matter where you live, because everyone is going to be affected the same. Let that sink in.
Right. So
I posted on Twitter a couple of days ago. I said, is it conceivable that the coronavirus is Mother Nature's way of dealing with climate change because humans refuse to? Right? I mean, that's some scary shit.
Absolutely. And the other argument that I know is coming, because I've heard it before. My own congressman, Sean Casten, he was billed as a climate candidate. He's not. He's full of shit. He's a corporatist and got into office because his dad spent $1 million. So I was told, well, you got to vote for him because he's a Democrat and you have a better chance of pushing him to the left. Well, it's been 2 years and Sean Casten is still not signed on to the Green New Deal. He's still not signed on to Medicare for All. He's still not signed on to the federal jobs guarantee. It's like pulling teeth to get him to vote for any Democratic policy, any of them. So when we say, well, you got to get Biden in, you got to support Biden because you can push him to the left. I'm going to call bullshit on that too. And what you're telling me is that the only thing that I have of value, the only thing, my vote, you want me to give that up under the hope that this particular gentleman who has for years exhibited things that are contrary to what we need right now, the policies that we need right now to sustain life on this planet, that I have to give that up now and commit to voting for him on a hope. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry.
Well, and it's that's the problem, and that comes all back to vote blue no matter who is, and Crystal Ball has talked about this, and Jimmy Dore has talked about this, is we lose our power. Because if we're just willing to vote for the Democratic candidate, we lose all our power to vote for whoever we want. If the Democrats know that the people are going to go to vote for them despite who they put up, then they can disregard us.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Right? They can totally disregard us, because you have to let the people who are that are running, that you have the ability to not vote for them. They have to earn your vote, because if they know they don't have to pander to you, and you've lost your power as a voter.
And that's exactly right. So then let's take it to the next step, right? You have people who see what's going on, who see the exit polling and the huge discrepancies that we have in major states. And then apparently everyone forgot Iowa, like that never happened. So now you have these two conversations. You have the Dem enter and the Dem exit. So Dem exit are like, screw the Democratic Party, I'm gone. Okay, well, what's next? Are you going to go to the Green Party? Are you just going to throw a fit? Are you actually going to knuckle down and do a viable third party? And no offense to the Green Party, but what I have seen in the Green Party is y'all not organized and y'all have so much infighting, just like our revolution groups have had, and you haven't weeded it out. And that's why y'all keep chasing your tails. So I wrote this extensive series. It's a 3-part series where I took environmental racism here in Illinois, a specific situation, and I laid it out for you how the machine co-ops and diffuses all of these good efforts. And I would point you to that because I see that happening in the Green Party, and it's gonna happen in any third party organizational structure. So you need to be mindful of how these things work. But for those who are talking about a viable third party, what are you willing to do? Because each state has laws on the books today that keeps a third party option non-viable without ballot access for your candidates and things like that. So my first question is, how far are you willing to go? Because you got to get off Facebook. You got to be willing to put in the work and the effort and all of these things. And there are plenty of people who will help you do that. But so far, I haven't seen the effort. I haven't seen the effort. It's easy to rant on Facebook. It's easy to do all of that.
Well, and
But
people don't know the proper way to go about it, right? Like
but what I'm telling you is, I personally have worked on bylaws. Personally worked on bylaws for a PAC and all of these things. It takes all of 10 minutes. And then you argue a little bit over nuances and some minor policy, 5 minutes. So you can set up a corporation in Illinois in less than 20 minutes, set yourself up as a party, get your bylaws, and by the end of the day, you're done. You're done with the logistics. But the question is now, what do you do with it? Because now you have ballot access issues. Are you willing to go to a state party representative, a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, and say, hey, here's a law that we need to have changed, and I'm bringing 5,000 of my rowdiest friends with me, and unless you put this in the floor to have it heard and go through committee, we're going to be on your ass, and you hold them to it. That is what you will need in each and every state. You will need people who are willing to stand up and fight the fight with people behind them. Otherwise, I'm going to say it. Nick Brana, he's been working on this for 3 years. Where the hell is it, Nick? What's going on? Right? So you can put a group up, you can talk about it, you can do all of these things online and create a nice little following for yourself. But unless you are willing to put in the time and effort to change the political landscape in your state, in your county, you're just talking. And that's how it works. So,
I think that we agree that the system is set up, to not allow change currently, right? There's a 2-party system, a duopoly in the United States, and it's completely set up that nothing ever changes, right? It makes it so difficult. It's going to take grassroots people in a movement beyond Bernie Sanders to do it. Now, I wanted to just mention that I ran out of coffee about 15 minutes ago.
Okay, all right. Well, we will end it here. I think we've ranted quite enough. And obviously, this is a conversation that we are going to take on much more as this primary goes. Yeah, and I hope that people will step back, put all of these things together, because these folks, the oligarchy folks, the people at the top who are worried about their consultant payments, they are not trying to hide it anymore. They're not making an effort anymore. So I hope that you can step back and see, okay, there's a problem here. There's a big problem here. And then start asking the questions. Now, what do we do about it? So
There was a woman who is on Fox News who has been exclaiming that the coronavirus is being used as a weapon by Democrats to scare the public. As of yesterday, she went into self-isolation. Okay. You need to understand that you have to protect yourself and your family. You have to stay away from human contact because it's clear that the government isn't currently willing to do anything to protect you. So stay safe, stay isolated, and protect yourself. And if you know people that are running out of food, there are ways to get them food, right? So they don't have to go out and look for it and expose themselves. It's called a community, and we all have phones. We all have ways to contact one another. Look out for your people in your areas, but stay away from one another until this passes. Stay in your house because it's the only way for this to stop. And I fear, I know so many Americans, and I fear that their lives are going to end. And I can't stand that thought. I've been in isolation since Friday. I'm not leaving this house until I absolutely have to. You need to do the same thing.
All right. Good advice, Andy. And with that, we'll see you guys back here on Friday. And if Facebook still isn't acting right, we're definitely going to stream to YouTube. So we'll try to let you know in advance. But all right, everybody, stay safe.